Hello everyone. I welcome all my students to this series of online classes. In this class, we'll be doing textual study of Tham Chak Pavatan Sut. Before directly moving to our textual study, I would like to discuss few things with you. Just like our physical classes, the way we do in our physical class, which I am really missing a lot, and I am missing all of my students, and I really hope that you are doing well. The thing which I want to share with you is that in this post-truth society, where it is really difficult to ascertain what is right and what is wrong, it is the prerequisite of of the hour is we have to do our own research. And the phenomena which I am seeing these days is that people around me, or we can say people all around the world, are scared. They are cultivating fear in themselves. You see, this is the strange time. This is really a strange time because I am seeing strange phenomena around myself. In the world, I see people are scared. They are inculcating animosity, hatred, dislikeness, obsessive likeness towards themselves, a kind of desperation. And in nutshell, if I say, I see people are scared. And this condition, they are scared of getting any disease, they are scared of short life, they are obsessive about their likes, and there is an emotion of hatred. They are not hating each other, they are not hating human beings, they are hating the so-called pathogens. In this case, it is COVID-19. You see, all bacterias and all viruses and so-called all pathogens, which actually, according to a theory, says that they create disease in our body, are to be looked upon. Okay, so I would like you to do two simple exercises. You have to do your own research. So first thing, you have to research about the difference between the germ theory and terrain theory. If I say a little bit about the germ theory, in germ theory it states that all these bacteria, viruses, parameciums, amoeba, or any kind of foreign object, it creates disease in a body, and in order to have good health and perpetuate this good health, we need to kill these pathogens. So you see, philosophically what it is coming, you need to kill to be healthy. And there is another theory which is in contrast to it, which is that is the terrain theory, which states that these organisms, bacteria and viruses, were existing before the existence of human being, and human body is far more capable of managing itself. Okay, it is far more capable in managing itself in the presence of all these pathogens, so-called pathogens, in the presence of these organisms. So to say, as we will read about these two theories, we will have better understanding about our immunity, what actually immunity is. And second thing which I want you to research about is the function of lymph. There are lymphatic vessels in our body, there are lymph nodes in our body. What is the function of lymph? how it is moved, as it is not connected with the heart. Heart pumps the blood and the blood moves, but lymphatic circulation is there in our body. There is a provision of lymph movement, but what are the conditions which makes this lymph to move? So I want you to research about these two things in order to have better understanding about your body, about yourself, about the immunity, just to have right state of mind. I don't wish my students to live a life and cultivate fear. I want you to be brave. I want you to have love, compassion. And once I was listening to a German doctor, his name is Dr. Andreas Moritz, and see how deeply the concept of ahimsa is in him. He was saying that I do not intend to consume turmeric and garlic because these are the most powerful uh, antibiotics of nature, and I don't intend to kill any organism living in my body. So he was emphasizing that even herbs are not needed if you have right state of mind. And if you are scared, if you are having hate in your mind, if you are disliking something very passionately, and if you are liking something obsessively, certainly it is going to lower your immunity, and eventually there will be sickness, there will be disease. And how do we know disease? Disease is dis-ease. Okay, you will lose all your ease in life. So I really wish you to do research on these two topics. That is the only way, dear. I feel now every student, every human being has to do his own research, because truth is difficult to find. I read it earlier at many places, but now I am realizing it. You need to find truth, you need to dig truth, you need to discover it, and it takes a lot of efforts. So let's continue our lecture. We'll be doing textual study of Chak Pavatan Sutta. Now let us start a textual study of Dham Chak Pavatan Sutta. Before starting the sutta in its textual form, we need to have some background study about this sutta. You see, the person called as Buddha is is a kind of person who actually discovers the lost traditions. For example, you see, we have lot many civilizations of which we have found the remains, such as Harappan civilization, Egyptians, Machu Picchu. Uh, there are lot many civilizations which are totally extinct, means totally ruined, totally ended up. Okay, and we still do not know what technologies they used, and what was the predominant thought existing at that time. So if you just imagine, hypothetically, there is a person who develops his mind up to such an extent that he is able to perceive the technology used by Egyptians in building the pyramids, or Harappan civilizations, what was the technology they were using, and what was the prevalent thought at that time. So, in the same way, Buddha is a being, is a normal human being who develops his mind up to the extent uh, that he perceives the reality of this existence. And after understanding the reality of this existence, he tries to draw up a method to eliminate suffering from individuals' lives. Such as if there is a path on a any path, if someone is not walking on it, eventually what will happen after some time, the grasses will start coming on the path, then slowly small plants will grow, and eventually trees will grow on the path, and the path will disappear. So Buddha is the being who discovers the lost path. He is not the creator. This has to be noted down. He is not the creator of any kind. He is simply discovering the lost path. So, in our case, Buddha, before becoming Buddha, this person, Siddhartha Gautam, Siddhartha, he becomes ascetic, and he tries to find out the cause of suffering in human world. And on that quest, he leaves his home and he tries to learn all prevalent meditating techniques from different teachers. And he completes all the course. After understanding all the techniques, he realized that no, these meditation techniques can give good birth, but that is not the ultimate thing. Means these meditation techniques cannot alleviate the suffering from individual's life. So, in last phase of his meditation, before getting enlightened, he was accompanied by his 5 friends who were meditating with him. And one day, Siddhartha realizes that no, this path will not lead me to the ultimate aim. So he abandons those 5 friends of him and wanders away, uh, and he meditates on his own. And one fine night, he discovers the true knowledge about this existence, which we know as enlightenment. So, after getting enlightenment, Buddha meditates for near about 7 weeks, contemplating over different aspects of the existence, and he realizes, see, before starting his journey, when he was a prince, before starting his spiritual journey, he had this emotion in his mind that, see, everywhere is suffering, people are inevitably suffering, so there has to be a remedy, a solution to remove all this suffering. And his journey starts. And see what happens at the end when he realizes the true nature of this existence and he removes all his suffering. He contemplates and he thinks that no, it's not possible for people to understand this. It's not possible uh, for individual to break the chains of bondages they have created over countless births. So one fine being, he requests Buddha that you see by your bodhicitta, by your enlightened sight, that there are few people who have just very thin layer of defilements on their mind. If they get the right direction, they themselves will find the true knowledge and they will become liberated, and which is accepted by Buddha. And then he starts his journey. And the first sermon he gives is to these 5 friends of him whom he abandoned. So uh, let us move ahead. Before starting the text itself, we need to look into the terminology of this sutta. The first term which appears in this text is the term Dhamma. I believe we have discussed this in our class, but let me give a running reference to this term Dhamma. Dhamma is, as we see the actual meaning, it is derived from a Pali word known as dhareti. Dhareti means something which acquires something, which owns something, which holds something, which supports something, and becomes the constitution, which is the constitution of something. So dhareti means the thing which is being owned or acquired or which is being held. Another meaning of dhamma is moral instructions. Uh, See, we are looking to the term dhamma from different perspectives, and in which perspective it is being discussed in this sutta that will be told. But you see, the actual meaning of the term dhamma is derived from dhariti, which eventually means the constitution, something which holds. Another perspective of dhamma term is the moral instructions. Any teacher who gives instructions about ethics and morality, that is also called as dhamma. And the dhamma is a Pali term, and when we translate it into Hindi, it becomes dharma. Okay, so from dharma you will know that it is basically moral instructions. Okay, we'll discuss it later. Then the third way the term dhamma is used is all collection of Buddha's teaching. Whatever Buddha has taught is assimilated or combined into Tripitak, and this whole Tripitak is also known as Dhamma. Okay, and another perspective of the term Dhamma is the cosmic law, the Niyati, means the causal law, the cosmic law, which incorporates the constitution of all the composite beings. So to say, the term Dhamma used in this sutta is not just what Buddha has said, but also the quality or the quality which is acquired by composite beings, and which is also the cosmic law. And these two things clubbed together is told by Buddha. So to say, the term Dhamma is used in this sutta is three-way. It is the moral instructions, it is the cosmic law, and it is also the collection of Buddha's teaching. Okay, now move ahead. If we see the term chakra, chakra means chakka. It is basically, in the crude sense, it is just a wheel. That is that which is continuously turning, and in applied sense it is a vehicle or an instrument. So this sutta is Dhammachakra. Now we will look into the third term, Pavattan. What is Pavattan? Pavattan is basically moving forward, or to say doing good, or to say executing something. See, this Pavattan is again derived from the term Pavatti. Pavatti, which means execution and manifestation. Now, if you club these three terms, Dhamma, the teachings of Buddha, Chakra is again moving, instrumentation, of execution, manifestation, and moving forward, going forward. So dham chak pavattan sud. Right? Now moving ahead to the text, I believe you all have this text which we shared in the class. Setting in motion the wheel of Dhamma means the wheel of Dhamma, the chakra of Dhamma is being set in motion. Now, how it is read, see. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was dwelling at Varanasi in Deer Park at Isipatana. Isipatana, if you go into the etymology of the term, Isi is Rishi in Pali, and Patana is a kind of harbor, a port. So this was the place where majority of rishis come to they used to gather, and they travel to this place to meditate. Okay, so Isi Patna, I hope Patna is the name which has come from this Isi Patna itself. So, on one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Banaras in the deer park at Isipatna. There, the Blessed One addressed the bhikkhus of group of five. Now, see, this group of five are those five friends whom he abandoned and ventured on his own path and eventually got enlightened. Now, after getting enlightenment, he contemplates whom to teach what he has enlightened. So his teacher Alar Kalma, who taught him his meditation technique, and there was another teacher, what was his name? Uttara Ram Putta. These both the teachers, he couldn't teach them. Uttara Ram Putta was already dead, and Alar Kalma means he didn't choose these two. Then he contemplates whom to teach. Then he thinks of his five friends. They were working very hard with him. So he walks from this place, the place of enlightenment, which is right now Gaya, to this Isipatna, and he gives his first sermon to these five monks. So how it reads: because these two extremes should not be followed by one who has gone forth into homelessness. What to? The pursuit of sensual happiness in sensual pleasures, which is low, vulgar, the way of worldling, ignoble, unbeneficial, and the pursuit of self-mortification, which is painful, ignoble, unbeneficial. Without veering towards either of these extremes, the Tathagat has awakened to the middle way, which gives rise to vision, which gives rise to knowledge, which leads to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to Nibbana. So, what he is saying actually, there were two traditions prevalent at the time of Buddha. One tradition was to indulge oneself into sensual pleasures because they somehow believed that there is no life after this birth, and there is no soul, there is no heaven, there is no hell, and there is no karma. So, out of all this philosophy, the kind of morality they had was to have maximum sensual pleasures at all costs. So that was one of the extreme. And another extreme, which these ascetics were also practicing, was extreme self mortification. See, actually, uh, It was believed that all sins committed by mind were actually motivated by the sensual organs. So to say, this body was the root cause, this body was an instrument as well as the cause for all wrong deeds to be done. So in order to remove wrong deeds or mental defilements, or in order to purify oneself, there was the tradition in that time, they used to torture oneself. Extreme self mortification was done. So what Buddha is saying here is that he has find peace, he has find knowledge, he has find nibbana, he has got enlightenment. Just a minute. So Buddha is saying that he has found peace, he has found knowledge, he has found enlightenment, he has found nibbana by avoiding both these extremes and adopting the middle way. That is the why he is called as Tathagat. How can we have? We cannot write. No? So Tathagat, you see the word here is Tathagat, means the person who has gone fully, means till the end. That is Tathagat. So he is telling that the middle path is the path of peace, knowledge, and enlightenment, eventually Nibbana. Now moving ahead, and what because is the middle way? Awakened to by the Tathagat, which gives rise to vision, which leads to Nibbana. He is asking what is that middle way? Then he says that it is the eightfold path, which is right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. So this is the eightfold path, which is actually the middle path, and by adopting it, you are on one side avoiding the extremes, and from another side you are attaining peace and knowledge. So thus this bhikkhu is the middle way, awakened to be to by the Tathagat, which gives rise to vision, knowledge, peace, direct knowledge, to enlightenment, and to nibbana. Now you see, next let us move to the next paragraph, then we'll discuss a little. Now this because is the noble truth of suffering. Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, illness is suffering, death is suffering, union with what is displeasing is suffering, separation from what is pleasing is suffering, not to get what one wants is suffering. In brief, five aggregates subject to clinging are suffering. Now, the point to be noted here is, as you read in normal textbooks, you see in Buddhist philosophy, first in chronological order, first four noble truths are being taught, and the fourth noble truth contains the eight noble paths. So the chronology is first four noble truths will be taught, then eightfold path will be taught. But you see how Buddha is teaching. Buddha is not using the same chronology. First, he is stating the middle way. He is developing his argument logically, and he is first stating the two extremes. Then he is asking to avoid these two extremes and adopt the middle way. What is the middle way? The middle way is eightfold path. Okay, and by walking, by realizing on this eightfold path, he has realized four noble truths, and these four noble truths are stated by him. And then we will see every noble truth has three aspects. So what are these three aspects? Let us read ahead.